Be drugs or alcohol, but every single person sitting in this room struggles with something.
That's right.
Every single person in this room tonight struggles with something. And every person in this room tonight needs Christ's strength. Every one of us. They're not one in here and say, oh, well, I don't need it. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. And then he goes on, and this is where it really gets good. But first of all, we have to recognize that God transforming our heart and our lives through us seeking Him is what gives us the power to continue on and persevere. Right? So we have to keep persevering. And then he goes on and he says, endure suffering along with me as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. I love that. A good soldier of Christ Jesus. He doesn't just say that's a good little guy of Christ Jesus. He says, endure suffering with me. Guess what? Who was soldiers in here? I know I got two. Anybody else been in anything? Soldier at all? We got two. Well, anyways, it wasn't easy, was it? No, it wasn't. You know what they had to do? They had to give up certain things in civilian life. They had to give up certain places that they used to go. They had to stop and they had to start doing things at a certain time, at a certain place, right? And they had to work hard for it. Very hard for it. Guess what? It's the same thing with our relationship with Christ.
Amen.
We work hard for it. You don't just get to do it and it's just easy and then everything just works out perfect. He never tells us that. He says, it's going to be hard. You're going to endure some suffering. You're going to go through some stuff, man. You're going to be going through some trials. There's going to be hard stuff that pops up. But guess what? You can always rely on the strength that Christ gives us. And that's the key that we can't forget, is that when things get tough, we have to rely on that. But then he goes on even further, and this is what he says. He says, okay, soldiers don't get tied up in the affairs of civilian life. For then, they cannot please the officer who enlisted them. And then it goes on, it says, and athletes cannot win the prize unless they follow the rules. Whew, that's a big one for everybody in here.
Yes.
What do you mean, I got to follow rules? Wait a minute. Now it's starting to get tricky. I don't know if I can do all that. What do you mean, I got to follow rules? Well, don't we want that power that He gives us to get through every situation? The only reason those rules are even in place is for our own good.
Amen.
The only reason that there's certain things that we know we can't do is because they're bad for us. And we don't need to do them. Right?
Amen.
Is that just me?
No.
It's not that God's sitting there going, don't do this, don't do that, and He's trying to control you and make you do whatever He wants you to do. It's simply because it's not good for you, and it hurts you, and it hurts others, and it hurts people around you. And He's saying, hey man, live your life in a way that honors God, so that you're not hurting other people, so you don't find yourself stuck in a hole again. Right? Get your power from Christ. And then he goes on, and it says, and hardworking farmers should be the first to enjoy the fruit of their labor. Think about what I'm saying. The Lord will help you understand all these things. Once again, it falls back on the Lord will help us understand. He's our strength. He's the one. He gives us the transformation in our heart. He gives us the strength to persevere and keep moving forward. He is the key to success in whatever you're struggling with, right? That doesn't mean it's going to be easy and it's going to just go away just because you've asked Christ into your heart. It just means that you have to fight harder, right? And the reason I read that for you guys tonight is because, first of all, we all have to persevere. And there's one person that can help us do that. His name is Christ. And the reason I read and I chose this tonight is because Scott came to this house, man, and I'm telling you, he fought. At first, man, he wasn't feeling it. He wasn't feeling it. He wasn't hearing it. He wasn't ready for it. He didn't want to follow certain rules. He didn't understand why. It wasn't fair. But I think now that God's actually grabbed a hold of his heart and completely removed that old nasty one, and I think He gave him a completely new one, because now Scott walks around with a smile on his face, encouraging and persevering. I think I even heard him say it today. I hear him say it a lot lately. Well, I just keep going on. Just keep moving forward. Just keep persevering, And he's got a big smile on his face. The first 2 months he was in this house, he went through it though. So listen to me. If you're new to this, if you're new to recovery, if you're new to Christ, if you're new, just keep pushing on. Don't give up, because there is great stuff coming. I promise you that. So Scott, come up here so you can tell us about it. You ready to come in? You packed the house, brother. Man. All right, let's pray for Scott, guys. Father, I thank you so much. I'm honored to stand here with my arm around my brother, Lord. I'm so thankful that you brought him to Innerfaith, Lord. Father, I know you've got a mighty work in. Father, I know he'll be faithful to go out and share it with others as well, Lord. And Father, I just thank you that I got to be a part of this. And Lord, I just pray for his nerves right now, Lord. I pray that any anxiety or fear or hesitation would just be removed right now, Father. I pray that your Holy Spirit that dwells inside of Scott and in his new heart, Father, would do all the work tonight, Father. Give him the words to speak, Father. Just speak through him, Lord. Let yourself be lifted up and glorified through this transformation in Scott, Lord. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I can be loud enough.
No, we're not starting the no mic thing. Somebody said that like it was only because the battery was out.
Okay.
We're using the mic.
Rules.
See?
I swear my heart has changed. I'm not. I wear my nerves on my sleeve, and I am nervous.
That's okay.
But you know, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
There you go. Come on, bro.
And I'm picturing all you guys in your underwear anyway.
Hey! You can make that happen. You asked for that
My dad always said the hardest thing about anything is getting started. So I'm going to get on this before I check it out or something. Here we go. I know exactly how long this is going to be. I timed it. Somebody tell me if I'm right. 21 minutes. I'm a believer who struggled with self-esteem, codependency, self-destructive behavior, isolation, lust, and fear. I feel the insanity of my life before my recovery in Christ was marked by a strong desire to be loved and paid attention to. My childhood was not terrible. It's just that it seemed lonely to me, even when others were around, although I found myself alone quite often. I always had an overwhelming feeling that I wasn't heard or my opinion just didn't matter. My family life was one in which feelings were not expressed unless it was negative, anger, sadness, etc. My father, I believe, would say, people would say was a good man, but he seemed for the most part uninvolved. My mother seemed that way as well. For the sake of balance, I would just like to add before I forget that there were times of fun and joy as well. My father had love in his heart, my mother as well. They just didn't know how to express it very well. As a child, it seemed I was able to get away with a lot, and I began to get good at lying and manipulation. I was a rebel from the start, lying, cheating, smoking, viewing pornography, sex, alcohol, drugs, fighting, skipping school, sneaking the family car out. I had guns pulled on me twice. I wrecked 3 motorcycles and 2 cars. In both instances, the car was flipped and at DWI, all before the age of 16. I grew up primarily in rural areas. Friends and I would fish and hunt and camp out a lot. My family moved around a lot for reasons that were never fully explained to me. Financial, I assume, because money was a never-present issue. My childhood in the country, I remember being pleasant. We would roam the woods for hours and swim in any lake or pond we could find in the summer. Around 7 or 8, my parents began leaving me alone, sometimes at home in the summer, if my grandmother wasn't available. My grandmother was a lot of comfort to me when she was around. In the summer, when I was out of school, and when school was in session, I would wake up to an already empty house, or my folks would be on their way out. So I would get ready to eat, get dressed, and get to the bus stop alone quite often. And I really didn't mind this then, but looking back, I can see how I was beginning to form bad character. When I began to choose to do what I wanted to do without any supervision to oppose me. My brother was a huge influence in my life early on and continued to be until my early 20s. We didn't interact a lot as he was 7 years older than me and not around a lot. He was a popular guy in school, and I remember having the label Rusty's brother. which worked out well for me. Sometimes it got me out of a lot of jams. Rusty was not, however, a great role model. About his sophomore year on, he traded sports and academics for parties, drugs, and girls. Nevertheless, I looked to him as my guide and emulated him, and so began my life of irresponsibility and selfishness. As I approached high school, I began to have an identity crisis. We moved to the city for 2 to 3 years, and I found it to be a bit of a culture shock. I grew up country where I would see cows on the bus ride to school, and now I was seeing graffiti in liquor stores. My father moved to the city for work, and so I was forced to change schools as a teenager, getting ready to go to high school. I began junior high school there, and it was just different. It seemed I just didn't know where I fit in there. The one thing I clung to was football, and for the next 2 to 3 years there, I worked hard on the field with my teammates, and we produced a couple of district championships. Outside of this, my experience was bewildering. I managed only one real friend while I was here, who became my best friend for most of my life, Ryan Denton Gilbert. It seemed like people here, the kids anyway, were always trying to prove themselves, and so it seemed Ryan and I were regularly in fights. I guess we found comfort and protection in our companionship. It wasn't irregular for these kids to gang up on one person and beat them. I thought this was cowardly, but Ryan and I took the necessary precautions to avoid these kind of situations. The summer I finished the 8th grade there, we moved back to my hometown, and I started high school after summer break. I was back, but things felt different. The area had grown significantly while I was away, and there were a lot of new faces. In addition, I just felt different. I changed while I was away. I felt somehow more worldly, I guess. I had been smoking pot regularly at this point and drinking when I could, as I found it easier to get drugs than alcohol. So even when we came back home, the feeling that I just didn't fit continued. Again, I found some comfort and release in football until my sophomore year, in which I failed a class and was forced to ride the bench. And that didn't sit well with me after starting for 2 years, as well as playing both sides of the ball. I began partying more on the weekends and smoking pot daily, skipping school, and just living with no boundaries. My parents were just absent. At the end of my sophomore year, I proposed to my folks that I drop out of school and get my GED and go to work. They agreed, so I did. Through all this, I still had zero relationship with God and only went to church when I was forced to as a child. Sometimes it took my dad's belt to motivate me, even back then. Still young and dumb and looking for adventure, I took advantage of an opportunity to go to work offshore. My brother was an engineer. I had 2 brothers. Rusty was the one that was still in the house and closest to my age, so I kind of followed him. And then I had an older brother. He was a stepbrother. He was always out, and he was already going. So this is my second brother, Ricky. So my brother was an engineer for a large offshore drilling rig company, supply company, and was influential enough to procure me a position even without experience. I had several years of professional and financial success as I moved up in position and income. I got to travel, see a little bit of this country, this continent: Mexico, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, and all over the Gulf and the North Atlantic. Still a teenager when I started, and no one to steer me in the right direction. I believe thousands with little to show for it, just a few toys perhaps. I would work a month on and 2 weeks off and party every day of my 2 weeks off. I drank heavy, smoked pot sporadically, and used cocaine at this point when it was around. During this time of my life, I felt on top of the world. I had no real responsibility, no family, and plenty of money. Outside of hangovers, I had yet to pay any real price for living my prodigal son life. But righteous living cannot go on indefinitely without a cost. I met a young woman at work. She was fresh out of college when we first met, but was spoken for, and I respected that. But she was engaged to a meathead, and I knew he would screw up. So I waited, and he inevitably did. We started dating, then decided to quit working offshore and pursue a life together without having to be gone from home so long. She became a professor at A&M, and I was a little lost. I was still a little rowdy, but wanted to change so bad. I just had no guide. I worked 2 jobs, went to college, and gave all I knew how to give. But after 5 years, she ended it. And knowing what I know now, I can see why. But at that time, I couldn't understand, and this event floored me. And in short order, my life began to fall apart. I moved out, dropped out of school. My drinking skyrocketed, and I used cocaine regularly. I picked up another DWI and a possession of a controlled substance charge. And after losing my jobs due to not showing up while I was in jail for the possession charge, broke, jobless, and a college dropout, I went back home to Mom, where things only got worse. I was on an addiction wheel I couldn't get off of, and it ended in the state of Texas versus Scott Goodwin. I was sentenced to 3 years for 3 felony charges, from theft to possession to a 3rd DUI. I served 14 months before being released to serve the rest on paper. I have only shared with a few people what I'm about to say, but it's such a defining moment in my life, I feel compelled to share it. As I was going in and out of jail, accumulating the charges that would later send me to prison, I had an experience with God that changed my life. I'm going to back up just a bit here to my actual salvation. As I was struggling in my addiction one morning, about 2 a.m. or so, I was recovering and watching TV. I don't remember anything about what the preacher said during this message, but at the end, he offered an opportunity for salvation in Christ, and I jumped all over it. I meant it, and I accepted Christ right there. The irony is, it came through Joel Osteen, a man in ministry I was very wary of. God has a sense of humor. I was saved through Osteen's ministry. I attended church where the preacher is of the Osteen family ministry, married by that same preacher, and will continue to be a servant to a church and ministry spawned by the Osteen ministry, as I will be a member of the Ark Church in Huntsville with Pastor Luke when I go back home. It's coming. Okay, so back to my experience with God. So my last trip to jail, I was attending chapel in the Montgomery County Jail, and one night as the preacher was closing his message, he did the usual invitation for salvation, but at the end he added that if we accepted, that if we truly wanted to know if we were saved, to just ask God. I'm not sure why that stood out to me, but so as soon as I went back to the tank with 25 other men, and the light was turned out, I lay in my bunk in the dark and decided to ask God that question. I've never been so sincere in my life, and I was at that moment, as I was at that moment. I said, God, if this is real and you are really there and have saved me, I need to know right now, or I'm going to throw this Bible in the trash and walk away. God, in His love and mercy, showed up. The only way to describe it is God put His finger on me, and my whole mind lit up. I mean that in the most literal sense. I opened my eyes, and there was a light around my head. I put my hand in front of me, and I couldn't see it. It was God, and I knew it. There was no mistaking it. Some of you know what I mean when I say stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have had experiences like that, but it was the only profound supernatural experience I've ever had, and I guess He really knew that I needed that right then, because I've also meant what I said when I said I'm going to throw this Bible in the trash. I need you right now, and He showed up. And it eliminated literally my mind and around my head, and I started crying because I just knew that I knew, and I've never doubted it since. I haven't been close to God a lot in my life, even after salvation, but after that experience, I could never deny Him again.
Amen.
Found my place here. Can you tell that I'm doing this at all?
No, you're doing great.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Doing awesome.
I love Brandon, guys. He's been a great son.
That's all right.
I assumed a little bit.
His turn coming.
He's been a all right. Okay. So I was saved now, but still had to face the consequences of my choices. In prison, I had a lot of time on my hands, and God began to get my attention in that place. I read God's Word, prayed, and attended church. I was scared, but He protected me even amongst all the evil. I felt like His light was shining on me in the dark, and when I moved, all the cockroaches scattered, because the light and the darkness do not mix. So I left and rejoined society, and all was well for a while. I gave God some attention, but I was still just so full of myself. And as always, I knew best. I still wanted to do what Scott wanted to do. And so I did. Over the years, it began slowly, just a drink here and there, and then more drinks, and then a peek at pornography, skipping church, getting involved in certain relationships for the wrong reasons, a general slipping away or choosing self first. The truth is, I was saved but hadn't surrendered my life to God. I had no real relationship with Him. Mostly just head knowledge and vague concepts. And without that, I didn't have a chance. The fear of going to prison only lasted so long, and I was back at it again. I would work and function, sort of, but was perpetually trying to recover from any damage I might have caused whenever I drank or used, family, financial, or otherwise. God gave me plenty of chances over a few years, but I kept on. In 2016, I received another charge for possession of controlled substance. I thought for sure I would be spending the next 5 to 10 in prison. I hadn't had any charges or trouble with the law in over 13 years. And my charge was small in their eyes, I guess. They thought I had been a good boy all this time. Little did they know. I was ordered to wear a drug patch as a condition of my bond, but after a couple of months violated this condition and used. Afraid, I called the judge's office to confess and pray he had mercy on me. But instead, his assistant, my future wife, answered and advised me not to, that he would, in her words, bury me. We text messaged for a while, then phoned, and eventually met in person. All the while, she expressed her concern for me and shared with me her story of her own son's struggles with addiction. Melanie was a great comfort to me during this time, and God used her mightily to drag me out of my compulsive isolation. I tried very hard early on to get rid of her. My thinking was that I didn't want to drag anyone down with me, and with me in this sinking ship that was my life, as if that were the noble thing to do. What would have been noble would have been to stop destroying myself and hurting others. When I was stuck in a cycle of addiction, my wife made my violation go away, and the judge never found out about it. Another miracle. I should be in prison right now. God used my wife to get me over. God used my wife to get me over the next few months. That makes sense, but okay. She seemed so genuinely concerned and loving. My family didn't even seem this concerned about me. I felt loved, but it was so hard to love anyone. I certainly didn't love myself. How could I love anyone else? Something bad was coming. I was suicidal. I felt so numb. I remember feeling so numb and hopeless that when my wife cried and I looked at her lying next to me, I couldn't feel anything for her. I was so numb, it didn't stir my emotions. That's something that usually stirs me And like a fire, I just want to put it out. I was a wreck and very, very angry. My wife endured a few angry episodes and didn't deserve them. She was trying to help, but I was pissed at the world and God. I was prone to snapping and quick to hurt others, unfortunately those I love the most. I began to try Celebrate Recovery and the 12 steps, and I agree they probably would have worked, but I was so far in the enemy's camp I needed more. In July 2016, Melanie and I found out about Innerfaith Disciple House through Scott Goodwin at a Celebrate Recovery meeting. In July 18th, I found myself at a round table with some guy who seemed unrealistically energetic and happy.
Who would that be?
But with an engaging story of failure and success with God at the center. I wanted to leave 6 months ahead of me. I think I said that a lot.
You did.
I can't believe all this time's in front of me. And I'm going to have to live under someone else's authority and rules. Another man telling me what to do. I was angry and chippy with the other guys and staff for a while. God bless Justin and his grace. I did not like any man telling me what to do, unless he was paying me. After all, I've been around the block, and I know more than they do. They would be wise to listen to me. Heated arguments ensued. Several strong desires to leave followed, and I came close a few times. But I wanted change. And I knew the enemy was working overtime on me. But mercifully, so was God. My God, who had brought me here. So I get started here, and I come in unhealthy, physically, mentally, and spiritually, full of anger with others, myself, and yes, God. I couldn't seem to get engaged in much. My attitude was bad, and that made everything miserable. I hated to admit that I was angry with God, but I was. I couldn't understand why He wouldn't take this from me. I realize now that if He did, I wouldn't have learned anything. And I believe He has a purpose for my hardships. Maybe starting tonight with this testimony.
Yeah.
Funny thing about the Disciple House, there is a tool in the form of the other brothers here that God uses to shape you. If you have anger issues, He puts someone here who will anger you. Patience, He has someone for that. An encourager to help bring you up, He's put that person here too. Whatever your flavor, it'll be here. God makes sure that He is intentional about all things.
Amen. That's awesome.
The defining moment for me here was one morning in chapel while Chris was preaching. The Holy Spirit was working hard on me. And I came to my moment of willingness, or surrender if you prefer. Before this moment, which came in my 4th month, I struggled so much with this. I kept hearing Joe, Justin, and Chris say that I gotta surrender. And this drove me crazy. I wanted to, but felt stuck. The most useful advice I got on this was one morning while speaking with Chris. He said, just take it to God. Be real with Him. It's funny how you can hear the same thing 1,000 times and then one day it just clicks. And so it did for me. Suddenly I was willing and active participant with God, and I knew it.
Amen.
As we all know, God uses people in circumstances to teach and show us, to give us perspective, etc. Often these are the ones close to us. In my case, God has used circumstances with my wife to teach me the most here. Through a conflict I had with her and a subsequent withdrawal by her, God has shown me that He is indeed near to the brokenhearted. And that if I let Him, His love is sufficient.
Yes.
While human love is flawed and conditional, His love is absolutely perfect and never fails. Through my relationship with God, brothers at Innerfaith Disciple House, my counselor, Paula Curry, and the Refuge as a whole, I have been able to take a pattern or struggle in my life of addiction, igniting after loved ones in my life withdraw their love from me. And there is nothing to bridge the gap. But I allowed my well-being to depend so much on whether or not I felt loved. When that was taken away, I was left feeling empty and not sure where to turn. As always, Satan is ready with his counterfeit love, and mine were alcohol and drugs. But praise God, not anymore.
Amen.
Christ bridges that gap directly
Yeah,
and
he
through
does.
my new family in Christ.
Praise God.
Here are a few of them. Miguel, Randy, Brandon, Jonathan, Zach, Grady, Justin, Joe, Chris, Paula, Aaron, Jason, and Luke. Just to name a few. Interfaith Disciple House has been such a blessing. I know God does all the work, but thanks to the obedience of Chris, Joe, Justin, Becky, Pastor Luke, all of God's obedient children who contribute to this ministry, I have had a complete change of heart. I am now responsible for walking out my new life and heart change. IDH is just a starting place for me. I am well equipped. My relationship with God is tight, and I am without excuse.
There you go.
I choose life and not death,
Yes.
blessing and not curses.
Yes.
I have buried my old man and will never go back to my
There
addiction.
you go.
Thank you.
Just speaking these words in your presence tonight makes me more accountable.
That does.
If you, any of you, see me slipping, pull me up on it immediately.
Don't worry.
Don't hesitate. My life may very well depend on it.
Amen.
Father, it's not about me. It's about you.
Yes.
Before I go, I just want to thank the Refuge, Paula Curry, in particular, for her professional observations and insight, and for just loving me.
Yes.
Also, my sponsor, Aaron, for working with me as I go through my step work, and traveling out here to see me and work with me, as I haven't been able to get to him. Justin, Joe, Chris, Miss Becky, and everyone else involved in IDH, I love you guys.
We love you too,
Love
man.
you too.
And I have a request before I leave or get off the mic here. Please pray for my marriage.
We will.
Yes.
You got it.
Absolutely.
For me to be a better, more loving, patient, kind, godly man, and for healing and restoration there.
Amen.
Thank you, Sean.